Ohay. Erzurum, the city in the northeast of Turkey, the administrative center. The central region, Merkez. The silt of the same name. Card inhabitants. The city is located on the Armenian highlands, on the plateau more than 1900 m high above sea level. Continental climate. Name and etymology. Erzurum, the city in historical western Armenia, received the present name in the 11th century. In 1048-1049 the Travnomyansky city of Erzurum lying in the neighborhood was destroyed by the Seljuks, and its inhabitants ran in Karen, which began to be called Erzurum from now on, that is meant by Erzurum. Ramian Byzantines, Greeks mainly called themselves, and already eventually was formed of this name Erzurum. History. Initially Karen Arshakadov, and after the partition of the country made about 387 a part of the domain Armenian, was the residence of the last governor of the western part of Armenia. The Byzantine Emperor Theodosius II about 421 years strengthened it, and Theodosia Paul named it. In 502 the city temporarily was in power of Persians, in the same way, and at the end of the 6th century when a considerable part of its inhabitants was moved to Hamadan. During government of the Emperor Justinian I. 528 g. Erzurum was the regional capital of the Byzantine Armenia. The center of local government, perhaps the Principality of Karen, territories of the province corresponding after 387 Upper Armenia was. Feodosiopol became known as the center of production of different types of fabric and also as the location of hot springs. The city was also the residence of the Armenian bishop. In 647 Arabs led by Habib win the city, then the last lodges in the city of 200 Arabs with whom Greeks repeatedly entered fight, but soon after 1000 the city is finally left the last. Primordially Armenian princes played an important role in all events connected with the Arab-Byzantine conflict in this area. In 770 local Armenian governors organized a large-scale revolt against Arabs and besieged the city. For the rendered help in suppression of a mutiny of Wardscler, Byzantium transferred to David III Kuropolot a number of areas, including Feodosiopol. After David's death, 1001, Vasily II inherited its ownership and between 1001/1021 created in these territories Tufa Ivoria. 1001/1021 1074. In 1049 mainly Armyan Nasliani city was taken by groups of Turks and the population underwent cruel slaughter. The Byzantine chronicler Ion Skalitsa reports that at capture of Erzurum by Turks Kurd people were cut up. During the Selçuklu period Armenians continued to make the most part of the population of the city. For the 12th century the Encyclopedia of Islam calls Erzurum the large Armenian city. Between the 12th and 13th centuries governors of Erzurum recognized the Georgian sovereignty. Since the beginning of the 13th century almost all western Armenia, including Erzurum, was in ownership of the Seljuks. After acceptance of the power the Mongolian military leader Beydhu brought together army from all people under its dominion and went to the western part of Armenia, which at that time was under the domination of the Sultanate. In 1242 Beydhu besieged Erzurum and ordered to demolish city walls. A Spanish historian of the 15th century during the travel to Samarkand, having visited the city, spoke The city was located on the plain, had a powerful stone wall with towers, and in it there was a lock. The city is not really inhabited, and there are fine churches. Earlier it belonged to the Armenian Christians, and in it there lived many Armenians. In 1472 it passed under the Persian dominion, and in 1522 Turks seized area of this. Modern historians call the city the capital of the Turkish Armenia, owing to a victory of Russians, under the command of Paskovich, over Turks on the Erzurum plain in July 1829. Ipatalik Erzurum, together with the main town, a stronghold of Turkey from Russia and Persia, appeared in the power of Russia, but on the Adrianople world. September 1829 was returned to the Sultan. During this campaign Erzurum was visited by Pushkin, who described a trip on the travel to Erzurum. In 1877 Ahmed Mukhtarbachab, broken in battle at Alachinsky Heights, receded for the Saganlugsky Ridge, pursued by a group of the General Gaiman, who again inflicted on October 23 defeat over Turks at Devboyna. The last quickly receded to Erzurum. The attempt to seize fortress by means of one rapid blow was not successful. Gaiman's group was located on winter quarters in the neighborhood of fortress. On the basis of the peace of Erzurum made in 1878, it was occupied in February by the Russian troops, but according to the Berlin Treaties it is returned to Turkey. In 1895 in the city, slaughter of the Armenian population, in which troops and the Turkish civilian population participated, was organized. At the beginning of the 1800 years, in the Erzurumsky Vilayet there were 976 Armenian villages in which more than Kurd Armenians lived. However, owing to a number of the riots organized by the leadership of the Ottoman Empire in 1821, 1822, 1829, 1830, 1854, 1855, 1877, 1878 and especially after slaughter of 1895, the number of Armenians was reduced to Kurd people, and the majority of the Armenian villages completely lost the population, and later in them Muslims were settled. In 1915 all remained Armenian population was divided into 5 caravans and deported towards Syria. On June 17 the first caravan of the deported Armenians was directed towards Erzincan, without having reached harbour it is exterminated. The second caravan, conducted under the supervision of 400 police officers, was attacked by Chetnik in Baberda. Survived died on Komikatnar Pirud Mosul. The third caravan, consisting of 300 people, was cut out, without having reached Komak. The fourth, 900 people, is destroyed in the village of Ashkala and the area Komak Bugazi in the gorge of Euphrates. The fifth caravan, stolen from the city on July 18 with Armenians, was weighted by a fate of the first 4. In August 1915 in Erzurum there were only 50 Armenians whose part as the qualified workmen was left for service of needs of the Turkish army. In 1916 during World War I the city was taken by the Russian army. From February 1916 to December 1917 the city was under control of Russia. According to messages of the press of the time, about 25,000 Armenians are cut out in the city before receipt of the Russian army, and in general, to summer of 1916, 65,000 Armenians from the city of Erzurum and its neighboring villages were brought to death or died in exile. In the summer of 1916, the Committee of Refugees, which did a great job on assistance and return of the Eremites who escaped from slaughter to the native land, was created here. At the expense of wealthy Armenians of Moscow and Erzurum, the Moscow Armenian Committee, which founded hospital and orphanage shelter school, began to work. Also the Union of the Cities, the Union of the Brotherly Help, the Shelter School of Brothers Paxson, and others functioned. Erzurum K. Sakarian appointed in 1917, the military commissioner placed hundreds of comeback refugees in the city and villages. At the beginning of 1918, Eremites created Community Defense Volunteer Squad from 500 people. Also the Committee of the Military Alliance and Voluntary Committee were created. On January 30, 1918, restoration of the Armenian statehood with the capital in the city of Erzurum was proclaimed. At the beginning of 1918, the Turkish troops, having used disintegration of the Caucasian front and having broken the Russian-Turkish truce of December 5, 1917, the city of Erzurum and 2/3 western and east Armenia occupied. Not numerous Armenian voluntary groups, having undertaken fire, covered several thousands of civilians of the city which could escape thanks to it, having receded in Transcaucasia. On February 18, 1918, the old Turkish army Vakub of the Pasha entered Erzurum, having cut out the Armenian population which remained in the city. In 1919-1920, Erzurum became one of the centers of the Turkish national movement. In Erzurum, the first Turkish National Assembly was called. Since the beginning of the 21st century, the city develops as the center of winter sports. From January 27 to February 6, 2011, in the city there took place the 25 Winter Universiade. In Erzurum, mountain climate with big fluctuations of daily temperature. The high arrangement above sea level does Erzurum by one of the coldest cities of Turkey. Sites. The monument of Azizi Anita, built as a symbol of heroism of residents of Erzurum during the Russian-Turkish War, is considered the main attraction of the city. In 5 km to the south of Erzurum, the Palandikan ski resort with the most extended and abrupt descents in the world is located. Among historical places and the centers of rest, there is a Lake Totem with abrupt coast and the falls of the same name, 220-meter Chobandid bridge built in the 13th century by the Seljuks on the Araks River, Fortress Pasiner and Tuolt. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.